Time for us to look at all of these, talk about the fight against corruption, having a review of the former chairman's tenure in office, Mrs. Farida Waziri, as well as the task ahead for Ibrahim Lamrode, the new helmsman at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Joining us to look at that this morning is Mr. Olanrewaju Suraj. It's an anti-corruption crusader. Well, good to have you join us this morning. Quickly, let's just take our minds back to the times of Mrs. Farida in office. We have a special report on that particular one. So just watch this and we'll be back to really look at the program proper.
It's like it's a crime to work in the EFCs or to fight corruption in this country. They fight against corruption, they fight you back in various ways. There are intrigues, they cultivate ways of fighting you back, and that is why I said it's like even holding a tiger by the tail. You know, if you don't take care, a tiger will devour you.
Has she been devoured by that same tiger? Or is she a victim of underperformance in the anti-graft war? Before her removal, Mrs. Farida Waziri, a graduate of law and a retired AIG of police, had at many opportunities admitted that there are challenges associated with fighting corruption in Nigeria.
Not everyone arrested to face corruption charges takes it lightly. You know, you find that there are always reasons or excuses proffered by them as to why they're being arrested. They say it's political opponents. They say it's enemies that bought the EFCC. And failure between the two, they now say, well, because they're rising political profile. So there's no one come up to say, yes, I did this, and feel a sign of remorse. And so we have a lot of challenges.
The now former EFCC boss was criticized in many quarters for her style, especially the use of plea bargaining in corruption cases.
You look at the merits of it. What do you want? Do you want the man to steal billions and go away forever unpunished, and the assets of the state is enjoying? Others are seeing it. The only soft spot I have for plea bargaining is that somebody is a convict and at least something is returned. But I am not, after the Lucky Benedians matter, I have not seriously thought about going into plea bargaining. If at all we have to do it again, it will be very, very strict. We will not play into that, and we will be sure of the judge that we are going to go to.
With many corruption cases still lingering in various courts and many corrupt individuals still walking the streets free, could Mrs. Farida Waziri be said to have performed well during her less than 4 years in office? These and other questions will be answered when her successor, Mr. Ibrahim Lamrode, begins his own war on corruption. Henry Ogunjimi, Channels Television News.
All right, okay, Mr. Olanrewaju, quickly, do you think, so many questions asked there by our reporter, Henry Ogunjimi. He was asking if truly she's been devoured by the same tigers she talked about, now speaking literally.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. I think it is important for us to trace both the emergence of Madam Farida Waziri. My people, the Yorubas, will say, which means the whip that the husband uses on the first wife is hidden somewhere in the rooftop for the second wife whenever she deserves it. We all condemn and criticize the unceremonious removal of Nuhu Ribadu, which Madam Farida Waziri happens to be the beneficiary of that process. So inevitably she's also experiencing the same thing now. So we need to understand how she emerged and what is presently happening. I would rather say she is, and that is why it is not yet time for us to celebrate her removal. It is important to understand on what basis. We want a situation where we would understand how and why this eventually happened. There has been situations and times when there are huge criticisms, series of petitions against her in office, both performances, both styles and both even allegations of corruptions, which were not responded to by the leadership of the current regime. So for us to just hear now, and it is actually for me very, very sad that this has to be done by a president when he was out of the country. I think for a brave president, it's something that he should have done while he's around in the country, and then we would be able to know, and that would prove to us that he's in control and is in charge.
And the difference?
But doing that, yeah, it is a huge difference. It shows that he is not able enough to stand up to the decision that has just been taken. Two, there are lots of
Why do you say
unspoken.
So?
Yeah, there are lots of unspoken handwritings that we're saying. If this needs, it's a major decision. It's a major decision that both affects our images, both at home and out of the country. And it is expected. I mean, as you can see, I was, when you were reading the headlines, one of them was saying phone calls could not even save our jobs. It's showing there were just so many intrigues that were going on there. And for a successful anti-corruption fight in Nigeria, there must be, for whatever it is. Yes, I've been here. The last review was when I appeared with her after she appeared on this program here, and I was one of those critics that can say that Madam Farida is actually looking at it, that she's not competent to be in that office, But then, the process of removal cannot be celebrated if it is done unjustly. We want a situation where she's been given a 4-year term of office. Is either she exhausts the time, or the government will tell the whole world, even though Section 3, subsection 2 of the EFCC Act says the president can remove her from office. We need to see the justification for that action. So it is not enough that because she is bad, she's removed unceremoniously or unjustly, we would say, oh, yeah, hallelujah. No, we want a situation
Suraj,
where, yeah.
I have to come in here.
Please.
Doesn't it sound like you're speaking from the two sides of your mouth? I mean, anti-corruption activists or crusaders will say, she's not doing well, let her go, let somebody better come.
Yeah, that is where you're getting it wrong. No, that is where you get it wrong. It is not, when it is done unjustly, you need to condemn the process.
Which one is unjustly here? That she was removed, or that the president did not say why she was removed?
That is the point. The president needs to tell us why she was removed. Because then it is important to know if it was as a result of the petitions from the people, or it is because she is no more responding positively to the overtures from the corrupt people. So we need to be clear about what we are celebrating here. So for anti-corruption crusaders who would just celebrate she's just been removed, then you might come back here next week or next month to say, oh, the new person too is bad. No.
Mr. Suraj, what you're saying is that there is even cause to celebrate, because what you're saying is that there is an assumption, or there is something, there's a predication upon which we can celebrate her removal.
Yeah, precisely. There are several of that for us to celebrate the removal. But in that celebration, there's a need for caution, so that we can know that the new person that is coming into office, if it becomes a good person who is not dancing to the tune of the leaders or the rulers, can just be removed like that. So we need to safeguard by whatever it is what we have said when we are calling for a removal. It is based on certain facts, petitions and evidences, which the government refused to respond to. That you need to know, which the government refused to respond to.
But as evidence, for instance, were these allegations favorable to the government at that point in time?
Well, I've not seen any time that has been favorable to the government.
So there shouldn't have been any kind of cause for not listening to such petitions.
Oh, there was. I mean, even look at, let's trace it, let's get it clear. When Madam Farida, so that you can understand, now we go to her. That's why I said, let us look at the process, look at the person. For Madam Farida was, unfortunately, when she came into office was when corruption was actually fighting back in this country. That was when former governors who were alleged to have been involved in corrupt practices were tried by the former EFCC chairperson. And this was where you can see the former governors and the former IG, Michael Kiro, all hands and gloves, sitting together to find a way of crippling the fight against corruption. It was as bad as even one of those former governors appointed his CSO into the EFCC. And this was at the point in time when trained hands, competent hands in EFCC were removed from that institution because there was an agenda to ensure that all these former governors who were accused of corruption wants to get away from it. And when she came into office, unfortunately, you can't see any one of them being tried. The one that was tried, which was the one she was also responding to, was Igbinedion, where Igbinedion was tried for 4 billion naira, and he was only asked to pay a 3 million naira fine. And that was where the ridicule in the plea bargain started from. This was where a bank MD who was accused or alleged of misappropriating over 250 billion naira was just only sentenced to 6 months. But we have the experience of plea bargain, and that is where it is important to understand the context of issues. When plea bargain was started with EFCC, we remembered the case of Anajemba, we remember the case of Onde, we remember the case of Alamaisia, we can remember the case of Tafa Balogun. And these are situations where people were made to forfeit all the proceeds of crime.